Welcome back to the Dreamhack Dallas Regional Championship. I am Niall Joan Rivers, joined in the booth today by Mason Clark. Mason, we've seen a lot of Magic today. What are your thoughts so far?
It's been really good, really exciting. The Pro Tour is still very live for all these players that we've seen. No one we've watched yet is dead. We haven't hit the elimination stages of the matches yet. But this round, we are going to be seeing our players have some, very tight calls starting now. And they're getting to that point where it's like every match point, if we lose, we might be starting to get out. And we have a very lopsided matchup sort of starting off here. One that traditionally, kind of popped up because of how good it was versus this one deck.
Yeah, so we have here Demir Midrange from Will Kruger, and he's going to be up against Domain Ramp, piloted by Matt Rosenblum.
Yeah, this Demir midrange deck was sort of a response to Domain. When Standard first came back about 7-8 months ago, we had the 3-set Standard going into it. The Domain ramp deck that won the Pro Tour, and we're going to see on the other slide here in just a minute, was the de facto deck to beat. It was the best thing. It was crushing Magic Online, doing really well in tons of events. Kruger's deck here sort of rised up as the foil to it. It's just sort of tempo-y deck that can play a normal grindy game, but also has a lot of clean answers for what's going on. Kruger has decided to play Demir midrange this weekend because of how good it is versus decks like this, like Blue White, and like Temur Analyst. Not in love with the matchup versus Convoke, not in love with the matchup versus Toxic, but if we don't run into those and we run into some of the more expected decks, it's really good. If we run into something like Ghoul Ramp, this is really good. And this is a deck that fell off, and players were like, hey, Esper's just better, right? Like, it's so much stronger. But Esper's mana is a little bit worse. Sometimes you do stumble. And notably, you lose out on some of those tools. A lot of Esper players are playing things like Wedding Announcement for more grindier games. And Kruger is playing cards, like Tashana's Tidebinder in the main deck that really help him in this matchup.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at the Domain Ramp list now. Now, I've played a lot of Domain Ramp. My favorite thing about the current ramp list that we see here in Matt's list is the one of Imadane's Recruiter. But what do you think, Mason?
Yeah, Imadane's is a great add to this deck. One, in the mirrors, it's a great way to sort of just play a herd migration, play this, overwhelm the opponent, and kill them. And in this matchup as well, if the game goes really long, having this card is nice. Also, Train the Troops, the adventure mode of making 2/2/2s can come up as a real thing. And I really like that Matt has cards like Tranquil Frillback in the main deck. That's going to help in some other matchups. In this matchup, it might be nice because it gives you another early play that can actually block. But one of the things we're going to see here is Matt's not going to do a ton that impacts the board early, and Kruger is going to try to set up a powerful one, like a powerful 2-drop into something like Gix and run away with the game.
Yeah, well, I think our match is ready, so we're going to get right down into it. Excited to see how this sort of plays out. We've got Will on the left here with Demir midrange, and Matt on the right with the Domain Ramp. Players have already got their hands ready. They are ready to play.
Yeah, and you see, look at Will's hand here at the start. Will has, both Constant Bronco and Vadmir and Fairy Mastermind, 3 very strong 2-drops into Gix. And Gix is that 3-drop we talked about before that kind of lets you run away with these games as Demir. And this is one of the reasons to play this deck over Esper, is like, yes, Esper could play Gix, but Rafine is a little bit better. But the Esper deck is not as good as using the cards as Demir is. Demir is playing that different kind of game.
Yeah, well, we are going to see just a couple lands from our players for turn 1. Nothing crazy going on just yet, but turn 2, we are going to get everyone's favorite, the Snorse, the Caustic Bronco, which is just a one of in the deck, but a very nice get for turn 2.
Yeah, Caustic Bronco is really important because what Bronco does is it plays like a Dark Confidant-esque who's been around for a while. Basically, we're going to reveal the top card of our deck, and we're going to get to draw a card. You can saddle it, and so then your opponent takes the damage. So if Kruger has the 3rd land, we might see a play of Gix saddle. Matt will take the damage instead of Will, and then we'll draw a bunch of cards. But in general, it just allows Will to have that steady flow of cards, and that is what Will is wanting, is that constant steady flow. And you see him, he had the land, but decided like, hey, I maybe want to keep my mana up, want to keep my options available to me. Hits a duress, so he's going to lose a life. But this is sort of the power of the Bronco deck, and it's something that's hard to have a lot of in your deck if you don't have any way to gain life. We see the black-green decks play a lot of it, but they have some incidental life gain that makes it a little more sustainable to do that.
Sure, and we are going to see the tapped creature land, the Restless Reef, come down on turn 3 for Will. And back over to Matt. who has a lot of lands in hand. Looks like we're seeing a Topiary Stomper, which is a great turn 3 play for this deck. It's going to take a look. It's always very critical which land you end up getting off of the Topiary here.
Yeah, a couple things we noted here too. At the beginning of the match, we talked about how we're going to see Matt do some stuff that doesn't really impact the board. Stomper is one of those things. It might look like a 4/4 dinosaur, but it's very scared until 7 lands hit the battlefield. It won't be attacking or blocking. Now, when that does hit, we are going to see that Matt's going to have a nice body on the board. But for now, Kruger gets to just get on the board and attack with impunity. And we do see the Gix come down this turn without the tap land to throw him off.
Yeah, and Gix is going to saddle the Snorse. Gonna hit a Vadmir off the top, so that is going to be 2 life for Matt. And then we get 2 draws, which it looks like were 2 Make Disappears.
Yeah, and that card is very nice in this matchup, especially in the developing turns. Unfortunately for Kruger, doesn't have a land to follow it up. If we had something like, Swamp there and do a Duress, will be feeling very good. Would have an answer for something like a Sunfall that could come down.
Which Sunfall does come down, probably the best thing Matt could have had at this moment. And that's going to be a 4 counter Incubate token for him.
Yeah, and will need some lands. It looks like he drew a flip card instead.
Yeah, looks like a Graveyard Trespasser.
And this is a pivotal turn for Will. He has a lot of different options available to him. Could Duress plus 2-drop. Looks like he's going to play Vadmir into Duress and trigger his Crimes.
That's right. So we're going to see the Depop, Sunfall, and 2 lands here.
If you're a Will, you feel a little bit better about missing the land last turn. The Duress wouldn't have saved you from the Wrath, but, you still feel bad about it. Don't get me wrong. Depop and 2 Triumphs.
Yep.
Now, if someone hasn't seen Vadmir before, this is a weird card that kind of every time you commit a crime, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, once it hits 4 counters on it, it gains Menace and Lifelink.
Yeah, very, very nice little creature from OTJ. I'm going to go over to Matt here. Looks like he is just going to be cycling one of these Triumphs to start off.
Trying to find something that can maybe impact the board. What about Triumph?
Looks like he drew a second Depop for turn.
If you're seeing Matt's hand there and wondering why some are upside down and some aren't, Matt is flipping the cards upside down that he knows Will knows. That way he doesn't have to, do anything and kind of have his cards in hand and make sure that he knows what Will knows about what's going on, which it can matter, like in this situation, Matt just has, pairs and just drew the same cards, but it could be something that comes up as the game goes on.
Sure. Also very important if your cards have different arts among them and all sorts of things. Nice to just make sure you know what your opponent knows. And it looks like Will is going to find a 4th land, but then just pass. And Matt is going to choose to flip the token on instep here. So he will have a 4/4 on board. There's a go for the throat in Will's hand. Not going to do much against this artifact creature.
Yeah, I like this play from Will a lot because, you could trigger some crimes, play the Sewer King, get that going. But having up just your answers here and hoping Matt starts trying to play some stuff and you can trigger crimes, grow your Vadmir, this is your best way. And you see Matt starts a race.
Yeah, I like that a lot from Matt. He obviously knows that Will has counter magic and other interaction in his deck and just says, if this is how you want to play it, I'll use my threat, you use yours. Now, Will is going to hit a 5th land, which is quite nice for him. Let him start developing the board while holding up that interaction.
We do see Lord Skitter the Sewer King come down, notably committing crimes, which is going to grow the Vadmir and get us little rats on the board, which allow us to race a little.
Yeah, very, very strong follow-up from Will here. He's going to attack in with the Vadmir, which is now swinging for 4.
Will Kruger wants to get, and that dice is a rat, I believe.
Right, and they cannot block.
Yep. But yeah, Will's someone who's played a couple pro tours. I know wants to get back on the grind. Loves playing high level competitive Magic. And is in a good spot as both these players are a couple wins away from locking it up.
And that is our temporary little rat token there. Now we do know that Matt has multiple ways to clear the board here, if he so chooses.
Yeah, if you're seeing Matt attack like that, that's probably a sign he's going for the Wrath. Last turn, he was winning the race, even if he got crimed a couple times. But here, he's going to go for it, and we're going to see, the casualty using the Rat.
Yes, and the counterspell targeting the depopulate on the stack is a crime. So that is going to grow the Vadmir even further, which means next turn, when Will attacks, after getting the trigger from the Lord Skitter, Vadmir is going to be up to 4 counters. It's going to get that Menace and Lifelink, and that's going to be huge for this race. But Matt has the answer. A Leyline Binding comes down, deals with the Vadmir.
Yep, and Will is a little bit behind currently, with his Sewer King, Lord Skitter, but does have the creature land with Restless Reef.
Mm-hmm. And has another Make Disappear, which, being able to just casualty away those rat tokens for the Make Disappear feels very powerful.
Yep, it is a great synergy in this deck. And Will's getting that Graveyard Trespasser to swing the life total also matters because now Will is presenting lethal, 7 on board.
Yeah, and Matt just doesn't have the mana to push a Depopulate into another Make Disappear.
Yeah, and if you're Matt too, you kind of have to play into these cards a little bit, but it's also like, I know Will just has a bunch after drawing a million cards.
Right, so it looks like he will be going for it. And Will, of course, does have the answer here.
Notably, Matt didn't attack this time beforehand, so the 4/4 can block, so Matt isn't dead, but Liliana the Veil off the top.
That is going to be lethal unless Matt has a way to deal with one of these creatures.
Yeah, the Topiary Stomper in the graveyard means the Graveyard Trespasser will trigger for the 1. And maybe Matt has something like a Long Goodbye in hand that he does have a Swamp in play. Oh, looks like life totals are maybe
life totals were wrong. Yeah.
Yep, that's our bad. But Will has another Make Disappear in hand.
God.
And it looks like Matt's just 1 mana off still of being able to.
Oh no.
And that's
and he's gonna pick up his cards.
Yeah. And congratulations to Will. They're going up 1 game, and we also kind of saw like how nice that matchup can be, right? Will in that game had a blistering fast start, stumbled on lands, kind of got 3 for 1, the game got back to even and still was able to pull out ahead. So, this matchup is tough. Will going to the sideboard here, though, has a couple cards, but it's kind of main deck for the matchup like we talked about, does have Spell Pierce that you can bring in to fight over the big graphs. You have Duress to fight those as well. Stroke hits all the big cards. Notably, the deck does play Cavern of Souls, so sometimes Stroke doesn't get there, but it's still something that is kind of worth happening.
Yeah, okay. Let's take a look back over at Matt's list on Domain Ramp. And what do you think he might want to do to swing this more in his favor?
So I like the Long Goodbye. That's a good way to sort of get through the counter magic and kill the creatures. If you keep the pressure off Will and he doesn't have something that is that nice combination of card advantage plus pressuring, then Matt can have times to overwhelm with strong cards. Also, Chrome Host Seed Shark, just being a 3-mana 2/4 flying, lines up pretty well against a lot of Kruger's creatures. And when you combine, that temporary lockdown, I'm sorry, not temporary lockdown, a Leyline Binding with something like Chrome Host Seed Shark, that's a good way to get more bodies and apply pressure to Will. I've seen some people bring in temporary lockdown, and looking at Will's deck list, he has a decent number of 2-drops. So I could see us having 1, temporary lockdown being added to the deck here as a way to answer some of that early pressure, but that might be a play that happens more on the draw and then on the play. We'll have to see how Matt wants to play it, but lots of available options to us. And honestly, this might be a situation where Matt's plan going into this matchup, Niall, was just to, hope to get lucky to win, because this matchup is a tough one.
Yeah, well, we are ready for our game 2 here. Of course, we will have Matt on the play as our players are shuffling up and resolving their mulligans.
Yeah, it looks like Matt kept a 7, and looks like Will went down to at least 6.
It looks like choosing maybe to put a Liliana on the bottom of the deck and keep 6. So, yeah.
But
And
I think Will was just trying to help us out there.
yeah, we're going to see a proving ground from Matt and just a top lane as well for Will. And then we're going to see Up the Beanstalk, card we didn't get to see at all last game, but great card in this deck. It's going to let Matt draw a card here. And then Deep Cavern Bat for Will.
Yeah, Up the Beanstalk is sort of massive, because now when Will counters those bigger cards, Matt still gets a card back, which will make it harder for Will to run him out of cards.
Right. And we see Matt has another Up the Beanstalk, Sunfall, Leyline, 2 Herd Migrations, and a Besage. Pretty nice little hand here. What do you think if you're Will you want to take?
It's an interesting spot. You can take the Leyline Binding, and it won't be able to. You couldn't be cast for a turn or so, anyways, just because of the mana situation. But it's also an answer to the bat. You could have taken something like, maybe the Beanstalk to force the binding on the bat, but I don't think Will wants the bat to be leaving the battlefield anyway. So this lets him poke in for the most damage. Typically, when there's one removal spell, that is the thing you want to go for. And since there are more than one, getting the one that can be cast in a timely way is Will's best bet.
Yeah, and looks like did go for the Leyline Binding. Matt is sitting here thinking about how he wants to proceed. The bat is pretty scary when you can follow it up with a bunch of different great 3-drop creatures. The scariest probably being a Gix, which we are going to see come down for Will. And a long goodbye on the Gix before Matt takes the damage. Going to deny that card draw for Will.
Kind of massive there. Matt could have also long goodbyed the bat and then got back the binding and then used our Herd Migration in hand to get the planes to then kill it. But Matt was just like, I do not want to risk this Gix standing around. We're coming back later in the game.
But we're going to see our second Beanstalk get played. Draw a card for Matt.
And Beanstalk is good if we can cast our spells, but notably, Matt doesn't have the white mana, Nile, for Sunfall on the next turn. So even though we're at the Sunfall turn, we don't have the mana for it to happen, which means Will knows he can take another turn before he has to worry about that.
Right. And of course, we can get up lanes off of the Herd Migration, but still would be one away. Now angels start to be castable. Archangel's in here. So we're going to swing in with the bat.
And it looks like Will just has 2 Fairy Masterminds and a Tidebinder, and it's going to Tidebinder that.
Yeah, Tidebinder the Herd Migration activation. Very strong. Keep Matt off of that white mana for as long as possible. It looks like we are going to see a tap lane that can make white next turn. So assuming this other Herd Migration gets to resolve, he can Sunfall next turn. But also losing life steadily.
Yeah, Will's doing a good job of keeping the constant pressure. And here, just gets to attack in for 4, drop Matt down, and then if Matt, Sunfalls in the next turn, which seems like he has the planes in hand if he's not using the Herd Migration there, or has some white source in hand, Kruger is just going to put 4 more power back on the board. And notably, with the Fairy Masterminds in play, if Matt tries to Wrath again on the following turn, he'll draw from the Beanstalk, and Kruger will draw from the Fairy Masterminds.
Right.
So even
And
though
yeah, so we are seeing him tap out for what looks to be a Sunfall. There are going to be 2 draw triggers from the beans. So we're going to resolve those, and then this will happen. He gets his Leyline back. Won't be able to cast it till next turn. Doesn't have the white mana up. But here come the Fairy Masterminds. Will did a very good job of respecting these board wipes and not overcommitting to the board.
and you see Matthew gets forward about it, he's laughing over there. He's like, dang, that is not good for me.
Yep, and we're going to activate the Reef.
Notably, Will milling himself.
Yep. And getting in for quite a bit of damage here, taking Matt down to 6.
I like this play from Will because Will could have done something like, because only has 1 card left in hand, it's Lay on the Veil. Could have played it and ticked up, but knows that Matt has plenty of cards thanks to the Beanstalk, and knows that Matt's going to get more cards if big spells get played. So not really worried about it.
Right, and here is a double kicked Archangel of Wrath. That's going to take care of both of the fairies. Also going to gain Matt 4 life, bring him back up to 10.
Yeah, that was massive. I talked about how, if Matt's going to clean up these creatures, he's probably going to have to let Will draw some cards. Well, that was the way he didn't have to.
Yep. Unfortunately, doesn't have enough mana to activate that Incubate token, so we'll have to lose the Angel to the Lily, but should be able to attack down the Lily if he wants. Oh, but it looks like it is Herd Migration, trigger Beans twice.
Yeah,
and
Will knows it's
Will's
over.
gonna scoop. Will's gonna scoop to that.
Yeah, and I respect that from Will. Time matters in these sort of situations, and also he just knows, like, what's my deck going to draw? I can't beat all the 3/3s. If maybe he doesn't play it because he's anxious, then fine, I can maybe get the game won a couple turns, but I'm going to die way too quickly. So well played there by both players. Good job on Nat for stabilizing after kind of getting in kind of an awkward position early on, but got out of there alive. And I don't think it's going to change much for game 2 or 3 here.
Yeah, I think we are ready for game 3 as soon as our production is. Looks like we are presently as our players are getting ready, and just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors of the stream today, Heavy Play. You can get 10% off your order at heavyplay.com with code Dallas2024. They've got great products, great deck boxes, play mats. Go check them out. As we are starting this match off with a turn 1 duress from Will. So we're seeing a Long Goodbye, Beanstalk, Herd Migration, Archangel, Atraxa, creature we haven't actually seen cast yet, and then just two little tap lands.
Yeah, this is an interesting choice for Will because the Beanstalk represents a lot of cards over the course of the game. Will basically undo the duress, but the Long Goodbye represents an answer to his early pressure. And yeah, you see Will go with the Long Goodbye so he can get the pressure going early.
Yeah, and we are going to see one of those tap lands get played. And then Caustic Bronco is going to be the turn 2 play for Will. And unfortunately, Matt did draw into an untapped land, so is able to play the beans, draw a card.
Yeah, and you see Will start to pick up his Bronco. He's like, is this rough beats moment? And Matt's like, well, sort of, but not really. Looks like Will is double checking the cards he knows.
Yeah, so I think the other triumph that we know about is the Proving Ground. So if Matt is able to draw into like a Leyline Binding, just has to play that and has the mana up for it.
Yeah, this is an interesting turn from Will. Yeah, I was going to say he could deploy Liliana of the Veil here, which is kind of nice. Or he had his Vadmir going.
Yeah, so going to uptick Lily. See what Matt chooses to discard here.
I like this from Will, discarding a card. He's saying, hey, I've got mine picked. You just, let me know when you're done.
Yep. And it's going to be Atraxa. in the yard for Matt.
Yeah, and Will kept Dreams of Steel and Oil probably to get a card like Atraxa. So Matt discarding it there might strand Will with a card. Now Will can always just discard that to his Liliana, but
And we're going to Herd Migration, main phase this time. Gonna respect that Tidebinder. Gonna go get a land, gain some life. Kind of hard to tell. I think Matt might have a Seed Shark in hand. I could be wrong. Didn't get a great look.
It looked like a Seed Shark to me as well. And this play makes a ton of sense if you go and grab the white, because then if you play Seed Shark and have like a Leyline binding, you get that 6/6 incubate immediately as long as Will doesn't counter the shark, which you can't really help,
Right.
Will counters it, he counters it.
Right. And looks like we do have a Tidebinder in hand for Will.
Yeah, and Will discard a land last turn to his Liliana because had dreams and oiling Matt, but
we're gonna uptick. Ooh, and Matt is actually getting rid of the Seed Shark. Here comes the Vadmir. Here comes the Dreams. And Matt just puts the angel straight into exile. Has a backup angel though.
The backup angel is huge. Now
and a Cavern of Souls.
Yeah, the Caustic Bronco got crewed up there by the Vadmir, but fortunately for Will, did not hit anything to dome Matt.
We're gonna go back over to Matt's turn. And we know doesn't really have a whole lot to do.
Yeah, and we're seeing here too that Matt's kind of getting a little like I can't really do much here. Am I supposed to just play my angel to block? But if I do, the Liliana comes down. Meanwhile, Will Krieger's like, hey, I'm playing Jun from 2012 essentially. I got Liliana, Dark Confidant. My deck's great.
Yeah, and we are going to see the saddle again and another land off the top to deal 0 to Matt.
Luckily for Will, this land makes it very easy for him to discard something to the Liliana. And Matt, kind of needs most of what he's got left. So he's going to discard the Taurus.
Yep. And really put Matt in an awkward spot here. It's going to be a long goodbye on the Lily.
Yeah, that is massive, as that is going to make it so Matt does not get ultimated by the Liliana and basically lose half the lands.
Right, and here comes the Cavern on Angel, which means next turn we've got a pretty nice Angel of Wrath. Oh, or it's going to get eaten by the bat. Oh, that is awful for Matt.
Yeah, and now Vadmir gets bigger as well. And we hit a go for the throat. Oof. Matt needs to draw something like Sunfall.
Yeah. It's really kind of his only out. But it is a Beseiju. That is going to be game over for Matt. Congratulations to Will Kruger, our winner here. And so well thought. Such great piloting of his Dimir mid-range deck here. Mason, what did you think of that match we just witnessed?
I thought it was really good. I think Matt did everything he kind of could given the matchup, right? It's kind of a tough one. And like we said going into it, Will's deck sort of arose as an answer to Domain Ramp, but still made a game of it. And, Will, had a lot of good cards, but didn't have a lot of mana, but did a great job of sequencing his spells in that match. So congratulations to both those players. Will still very much live to make the Pro Tour here today. And I think we actually have a winner interview with him.
Yeah, let's get to that and see what Will has to say.
Hey everybody, welcome back down to the feature match area brought to you by Heavy Play. I'm here with Will Kruger. Will, so you're X-3 in this tournament right now, you're 9-3.
Yeah.
All 3 of your losses are the same deck, so you're 9-0 versus the field.
Well, the field except for Boros Convoke, yeah. 9-0 versus not Boros Convoke. Firm and clear 0-3 versus Boros Convoke. That matchup is not very good. Yeah, but I think basically this deck is really good against Analyst and blue-white control and sort of decks like that, like bigger, like more expensive stuff. Like it's got Spell Pierce, Make Disappear, Duress, stuff like that to kind of combat that. Those cards are less strong versus Convoke. Obviously, you have some tools to win, but I am 0-3 against it, so I guess maybe not. Maybe you don't have the tools to win, but I practice versus Convoke, and like I was doing okay, but not very well. But I've got some sweepers because I'm playing a black deck, so I have some Path of Peril and Malicious Eclipse. I think I should have played more Malicious Eclipse. You have enough removal for Warden anyway, and exiling Sanguine Evangelist is like really important, and then it also gets Yoshin Frontliner, and it gets Crawling Chorus from the Toxic deck, so I kind of wish I played more Malicious Eclipse. Like basically everybody plays Path of Peril. I kind of wish I played Malicious Eclipse. It also kills Imidane's Recruiter, which isn't like a huge deal, but like that matters. I don't know. So, yeah.
So I'm taking a look at your Dimir mid-range deck here, which is like one of my favorite decks in all of Standard. I really loved it, what was about 2 seasons ago, kind of, where it was really good and putting up a lot of results.
Yeah.
And yours has a lot from that deck, but you have a couple specific differences.
Yeah, so first, this deck was like originally built by Andrew Tenjum. He is very smart, and I'm not very smart, but he built this deck originally. He was the first one who decided to start playing, like, what if we played Vadmir in Constructed? And it didn't look very good. Originally, he was a more dedicated crime deck. He had Duelist of the Mind. That card is not very good, but Vadmir is really good, especially like I don't have any dedicated crime cards. Like I'm not playing anything like I have Hearse in my sideboard, and that is really good at committing crimes, but it's just there for Analysts anyway. Like other people play Hearse in their decks normally, but like all the ways you commit crimes are like cut down, go for the throat, make disappear, duress, stuff like that. Like all the cheap interaction, which is like long history. Like, I mean, how many tournaments has Duress been played in the last 20 whatever years, right? A lot. It's really good. There's good normal cards, and then so Vadmir can sort of act like a Tarmogoyf. And then the other thing about Vadmir is that it does actually, again, I am 0-3 versus Boros Convoke, so I can't really, you know what I mean? Sure. But in practice, you could win some game ones by getting Vadmir to the lifelink mode. Like that was actually not like reliable, but it was like a thing that happens sometimes. And I did win. I've won 2 games against Boros Convoke. Unfortunately, not in the same match, but I've won 2 games versus them, and both of them were Vadmir getting massive, and yeah. And then also, the other thing about Malicious Eclipse is that if you get your Vadmir big enough, it doesn't kill it, but Path of Peril does. So that was the other. So I should have played more Malicious Eclipse. That was an oversight. That was not a good deck building choice. So.
And I know that you'll call it Spygrass Siren as well, a card that we've seen in pretty much every other deck like this.
Yeah, I played a good amount of the blue-black deck with Spyglass like before, and like you're more heavy into like the Gix plan and stuff. That seems to be like a little less reliable in this format. Like Gix is more like I think it's probably better treated as like a nice to have card where like if it works, like they die and that's awesome, and if it doesn't die, it trades for Go Throat rather than like if this Gix plan doesn't work, I'm playing all these not so great cards like Spyglass Siren. I mean, it is good. Like a way to like something I liked about Spyglass Siren is that like being able to like start the game, like be the first person like actually attacking, and like because life total races matter like a ton in this format. So like if it's a 2/2, that's awesome, and then if it gets a land, then like you can kind of look at it like flying Thraben Inspector that costs 1 to. I mean, I don't know. We're kind of jumping through some hoops here, but sure. Yeah, like so Spyglass Siren isn't that bad of a card, but like when you're less interested in like the Gix stuff, then the Siren doesn't make as much sense either. So.
Well, thanks for the time. Your deck's great. You've been doing pretty well. Let's hope you avoid Boros Convoke for the rest of the day, and maybe we'll see you in the top 8.
3 is enough. Thanks, Dan, and I appreciate it, man.